Hello, hope you're having a perfectly balanced day. Recently I won 2 regionals with Runick Chimera. I did a deck profile on that, and quite a few people requested that I do a video on the deck with the new fusion monster from AGOV Overlords. Some other people also asked that I do a video explaining how to play the deck, so in this video we are doing both. First of all, I will show what's changed in the deck, and then we will go over a couple of combos. So with no further ado, enjoy! There is also Tau from the new set, which can reborn an illusion monster. It might have more of a place in a more pure Chimera deck, but I don't think it does enough in the Runick build. So same as before, we have the same Chimera ratios, still do Chimera Fusion. I'm still playing 3 talents, because there is a bit more combo decks around now. There is definitely an argument that this could instead be dropless. So the new fusion monster requires 2 monsters with different types, as long as they are Beast, Fiend, or Illusion. It gets the effect to become Chimera the Flying Mythical Beast, meaning that you can add back Chimera Fusion from grave to hand, and it turns on the effects of Sword Knight and Cornfield to negate things. And when it's summoned, you can dump a Beast, Illusion, or most commonly a Fiend monster from your deck to the graveyard. So if you combine this with the older fusion monster, this lets you essentially reborn any Fiend monster that you want, because you can use this new card to send any Fiend monster from your deck to the graveyard, and then use the older fusion monster to then reborn that Fiend monster from a graveyard. So for example, against something like Unchained or T-Element, you can use this to send Anubis, and then you can use the older fusion monster to reborn the Anubis to turn off every effect in the graveyard. We're also playing 1 copy of the Scottish YouTuber Farther. The reason why I'm playing this is because you can dump it off of the new monster to get instant value. So if you summon the fusion monster in their turn, you can send Farther to banish a monster, but the more common way that I would use this card is using it aggressively. Something I noticed when playing this deck at events before is that when you summon the new fusion monster, they aren't always prompted to respond to that, because your card says discard a card in the end phase. If you have a full board, you have your follow-up already, you don't really care about that. You're not going to be, feel like you're meant to respond to that, but you want your opponent to respond to this. So instead, what I'm doing is I'm summoning this card going second a lot of the time, and I'm sending Farther from deck to graveyard, and then that will force them to do something. Which not only makes it a lot easier to push into their board, but it also makes cards like Talents and Thrust a lot better. Branded Fusion also gets a bit better going second to this format, because people are ending on cards like SP and IP. It makes Rinbrum all the more valuable because you then get to deal with an interruption immediately while also getting to search for a Sword Knight or Cornfield by dumping the Gazelle to graveyard. These cards aren't too bad to draw, similar to the Shufflers in the older build, because this can be Tribute Summon sometimes, it's a Fiend monster to fuse with, and Farther is a Fiend monster to fuse with, but also you can discard Farther for Hugin, which is pretty strong going second. One difference between this build and the last one is that I'm choosing to respect combo decks a bit more, because I think that combo decks will be a lot more popular given how many generic combo stuff we are seeing in the new set. And then the rest of the side deck is the same as the last deck profile, where we have Free Thrust with Herald for purely, evenly has a lot of coverage, Metaverse, something Beworld, and Banshee are cards that I'm still playing for Flu. I'm not sure if I want to play these still, because I don't know how popular Flu will be in the new format. I have them in the deck right now because I think that Flu will likely still be popular enough to where I'm playing these cards if the Flu player is good enough at drawing Shifter or Featherstorm. Onto the extra deck, we have 1 of the new fusion monster and 2 of the older fusion monster. Another effect of a new fusion monster is that you can banish it to reborn a banished Beast, Fiend, or Illusion. So after you do the effect in the grave of this card, you can then use the new monster to reborn this back when banished. It's also a nice way to beat Bestials too, it's by using this to bring back the things that your opponent may have banished from Bestials. Then only 1 Guardian Chimera, 2 does come up, but with some things we're trying to fit into this new build, there isn't really space for 2 unless you are not playing Branded Fusion. 2 Hugin as before, and only 1 Jerry. I would like to play 2 Jerry still, but again space is quite tight. Perhaps on further testing I would try and find a way to play 2. But I think that 1 is of course perfectly fine still. Then 1 Magnum, this card is really insane, and we have the 4 card branded engine here still. The rank 4 Baguska, which also comes up a lot because we can reborn it with the Chimera. In the old deck list, If you saw the last deck profile, I was playing Muckracker to bring back Baguska from grave. Of course, we can't do that in this deck because I'm not playing Muckracker, but you can still reborn it an additional time. But you can still reborn Baguska an additional time by bringing back the Chimera with the Before Met, and then using Chimera again to bring back Baguska again. T-Fon I think is really strong with any Runick deck because you can't summon after you summon it, but at that point you're kind of okay compared to most decks because you will have Runick cards in your hand which don't require you to summon. And another card which is really strong with Runick is SP Little Knight. This card is very good because any Runick spell gets you to Hugin, and then Hugin plus anything then climbs up into SP Little Knight. So yeah, we're playing 12 fusion monsters and 3 non-fusion monsters. It is quite common to see in branded fusion decks people playing 15 fusion monsters, but I think that it's definitely worth to play these cards because the only cards that actually lock us into fusions are Branded Fusion and Before Met, and Before Met only locks us for the rest of the turn. So now we're going to move into some combo demonstrations. To respect the draw here, we're going to go tip in the draw phase to search. Let me go standby main. Fountain, and now we go Slumber to summon. And we're going to go Chainlink 1, Fountain target 2. Chainlink 2, Hugin, discard Gazelle. We're doing this for 2 different reasons. The first reason being that it means that we can't draw the Fountain, the other Fountain off of Fountain. It also means that they can't Ash Fountain. The reason why I didn't discard Tip to draw 3 here is because I want Tip on their turn to search for a piece of interruption and be able to draw more cards with Fountain. So Hugin will resolve and get us a Fountain, and then the Fountain will resolve, putting back these 2 to draw 2. So at this point, if we get drawed, it's pretty fine because we go Talent's Hand Rope, and then we have Tip, Slumber on their turn to draw a bunch of cards, and at least have 1 piece of interruption. So let's assume that we didn't get drawed, and we're going to go Cornfield to search. Going to grab Sword Knight, going to normal summon Sword Knight, and then Sword Knight effects, and then Sword Knight will go into Birth Met. So Birth Met will grab us a Fusion and a Gazelle. And then we're going to use Fusion to turn Birth Met and Gazelle into Chimera. I'm going to go Chainlink 1, Chainlink 2, Chainlink 3. Birth Met will target a Sword Knight. So we're going to get to search for another Sword Knight. I'm going to get to reborn the Sword Knight. The reason why I put this card in attack mode, not in defense, is because it means that Unchained cannot punch over it with Shivara or Yama. Then we're going to go Fusion to add back to hand. This might not look like much, but you have to also consider that this is going to be searching 2 more cards when you go into Birth Met. It will also be a negation from a graveyard. You get to draw 3 more cards of Fountain, and your follow-up is going to be crazy because you're going to draw for turn after they can't kill you, and you have like 8 to 9 cards in your hands. So losing when you have this kind of setup is close to impossible normally, unless they main deck evenly matched. So in their draw phase, we're going to go ahead and use Sword Knight to tag into Birth Met. If this is after game 1, I would not do this here. The reason being is that Thrust into evenly matched is pretty common post-siding, but main decking evenly matched with Thrust isn't that common. Thrust is a very common card to see in the main deck, but evenly matched not so much. If at some point evenly matched becomes more common to main deck this format, then I would not recommend doing this in the draw phase in game 1. And I would definitely not recommend doing it post game 1 anyway, because Thrust into evenly matched is one of the only ways that you lose with this sort of board. And then this will search for Gazelle and another Chimera Fusion. And we have a monster negate. If they have something that targets, we can negate with Cornfield too. So from this point we can do stuff like Chimera Fusion into Guardian Chimera. We can draw 2 more cards of Guardian Chimera. We can also go Tip to search. We can draw 3 off Tip. And because of the reborn effects from this, it's very, very unlikely that you lose that turn. and the Runick cards also help you stay alive. And then on your follow-up turn, you normally go for a line where you hand rip them another time. You want to try to avoid using the reborn effect of Chimera on their turn if possible, because then that lets you add back the fusion at the start of your turn. If at some point your opponent starts playing the element cards or unchained cards, you can go fusion, fuse off these two, make Baphomet, then you get Baphomet and also Baphomet. This Baphomet will reborn a cornfield if you want to, but doesn't have to. You might want the target negating graveyard still, and then Baphomet can send Anubis to grave. And then you can go Chimera to bring back Anubis to turn off all effects from a graveyard, when you have Runick cards to help protect this too. And then even if they break your board, you have your Runick cards to establish a follow-up with things like Gary. You also have Paguska to kind of put them on the back foot. T-Fun's also very nice to help clear their board again. And because you're drawing 3 cards every turn, eventually you're going to be seeing Branded Fusion into Mirrorjade, which at that point seals the deal. So this time we're going to be showing a hand with Branded Fusion. As before, we're going to respect draw by doing draw face Flashing Fire into Hugin. And then we go Hugin, pitch Flashing Fire, grab Fountain. Then you can go standby phase, main phase, activate Fountain, and then you go Branded Fusion and Chain Slumber to target this. The reason being is that this also respects draw and Lockbird, because we go Branded Fusion by sending Albaz and Gazelle into Rimbrum. They banish 3 cards from Slumber as well, and then in a new chain, we go Chainlink 1, Fountain, target 3, and then Chainlink 2, Gazelle to search. So Gazelle will search for either Cornfield or Sword Knight. If you really want to respect draw, you can search Sword Knight, but searching Cornfield is usually better. And the reason why doing that Chain Slumber thing respected draw is because by the time they draw you, you now have already drawn 3 and searched off Gazelle. So we draw 3. And now we're going to go Cornfield, search Sword Knight, go Sword Knight effects, then we get Baphomet effects. Baphomet will grab another Chimera Fusion and another Gazelle. And we can go Fusion away, Baphomet and Gazelle into Chimera. And Baphomet will bring back the Sword Knight. This will also hammer up in the end phase 2, can add back Chimera Fusion to hands. And then we set this and pass, and if it is game 1 and we don't play around evenly matched off of thrust, we do the same thing with Sword Knight into Baphomet, and then Baphomet to grab Fusion and Gazelle. Rimbrum makes this end board even stronger than before, because we can fusion away the Rimbrum and, let's say, Farther and this. That makes a Gardener Chimera. We draw 2, pop 1, banish with Farther, reborn with Baphomet as well. And then we can also, later in return, we can go Rimbrum to bring back Albaz, and then use Albaz and one of their monsters to make either Mirrorjade if they have a thing summoned from the extra deck, or if they don't and they have a light or dark monster, we go into Albion into Mirrorjade or Lubellion into Mirrorjade. And on top of all of this, you then have the monster negate still, the target negate, and you have Flashing Fire. And after you use Flashing Fire and Smiting Storm, you can draw 2 more cards, a Fountain, which is of course pretty nice. Thank you all for watching, have a perfectly balanced rest of your day, and adios.